Well, hello everybody. I had a chance to talk to some of you, but not everybody, but come see me after we're done. I'd be happy to talk with anybody in the room. All right. I'm Rick Gregory, and I have been invited here to talk about the Bell Witch. And if you're here, that means you probably have already known something about the Bell Witch. Is that fair? All right, that's probably what brought you here. You didn't know me, but you knew the witch. All right. I'm going to start off by telling you how I got interested in writing this book. University of Tennessee Press just published it, and I'm a public speaker. That's what I do for a living. I've been in over 40 states and 3 Canadian provinces, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, everything around the United States and Canada where I work disappeared. And so I thought, well, I've got to do something. I can't just sit around the house. I don't think she'd let me just sit around her house. I bought the farm, but it's her house. So some of you know what I'm talking about there. And so I thought, well, you know, Rick, 2 things. You live in Adams, Tennessee, where 2 things are there that are known around the world. The Bell Witch, and what was the second one? The Tobacco Night Riders. And little place that nobody knows about hardly, unless you've been there to watch a play or come to do something at the Bell Witch Cave. And so I thought, I had written my doctoral dissertation at Vanderbilt on the Night Riders, but I didn't publish it when I decided not to become a professor. And I was going to become a public speaker. So I thought, Rick, you can turn your attention back to it. But something kept itching my brain. It was the witch. And she was saying, me first. Me first. And so I did an incredible amount of research and condensed it down to here, to this book. Now, what really got me to thinking about the Bell Witch book first is, I've told you a moment ago that I've worked all over the country. And so in the same week, about 5 years ago, I found myself in the same week in Portland, Oregon, and Portland, Maine. 2 beautiful places, but in the same week. And normally a conference would go like this: 3 days, maybe 4, but normally about 3. You fly in, somebody picks you up, they take you to a nice place and where the conference is going to be, and there's a banquet for everybody there. And so I'm sitting in Portland, Oregon, and 5 people sitting at the table with me. One of them said, after some conversation, Rick, where are you from? And I said, Adams, Tennessee. Anybody want to guess what somebody at the table said? Bell Witch. Bell Witch. I'm hundreds and hundreds of miles away from home. Bell Witch. Okay, we're done there for 4 days. I get on a plane. I travel completely across the United States, as far away from Portland, Oregon as you can be, and I'm in Portland, Maine. Same thing. 6 people sitting at the table. Rick, where are you from? Adams, Tennessee. And somebody at the table said, Bell Witch. And so my wife and I are walking down the beach in Florida, seaside, and a couple of people are walking toward me, a man and a woman. I know it's hard for you to believe I'd stop and talk to folks. I know it's hard to believe, but we stopped and started talking, and I could tell by the way they talked, they were Nordic. Ended up, they were from Sweden. And so we start talking with each other, and the woman says, Rick, where are you from? I said, Adams, Tennessee. This woman from Sweden said, Bell Witch. And so that's when it dawned on me that this wasn't just a story for Adams, Tennessee, for Tennessee and Kentucky. This is a story that people around the world knows. Rick, you can do something nobody's ever done. You can try to explain how somebody in Sweden knew about the Bell Witch. And so that's what got me to write the book. And by the way, can I hold one just for a moment? This right here is about 1,000 hours of my life. Because I realized when I started doing my research that there's an incredible number of books and articles written about the Bell Witch. And if I was going to write something different, I needed to see what everybody else had written about. So, what I'm going to do is give you a brief review of what the Bell Witch legend myth is. And then, but that's out there. Hundreds of people have done that. But I wanted to do something other people had not done. I wanted to put bookends on the Bell Witch legend. On this end, why do people believe in things they can't prove? Now I want to be very careful. I'm never referring to religion. I'm referring to things that people believe in the supernatural or in other ways that they can't prove, but they believe it. Bell Witch falls in that. Now, on this end, how in the world did this story out of a little place, and by the way, the time of the Bell Witch legend, we're not called Adams, we're Red River. We're not Adams until the railroad comes through. Anybody want to guess what the guy who helped build the railroad's last name was? Adams. So, Red River. How in the world did this story become worldwide? So I'm going to give you a synopsis of the story, and then I'm going to put some bookends. The Bell Witch story begins. I'm going to give you a version of it because there are thousands of versions of the Bell Witch story. All right, so a version, and I put it in the book, by the way, because the UT Press editor said, Rick, this is a wonderful piece of work. We're going to publish it, but you probably need to put a chapter in it about the story itself. I go, okay, if it'll get you to, hello back there, good to see you. And so the Bell Witch legend, or the piece I'm going to say to you, begins with a knock and a whisper and a scratch, and it ends with the death of John Bell. Starts in 1817, and in the Bell house, the members, John and his wife and their kids, started hearing those things that I just mentioned to you. And they'd be looking, John would say, hey kids, quit doing that. They're not doing anything. And it gets louder, all those things get louder and louder. And then one day, Betsy Bell, who is a major player besides John, because the Bell Witch, for whatever reason, did not like John, but did not like Betsy. And Betsy is out playing in the yard, and she sees a young woman hanging from the tree with stuff dribbling out of her mouth. Ran in the house to get her family to come out. The girl's gone. John would see animals that he did not see in North Carolina. The Bells came from North Carolina in the 1820s and settled in Robertson County, where I live, where we live. I live, by the way, 2 miles from the Bell Witch Cave, and that's kind of a spooky place to be. And so he started seeing animals that did not look like animals that he'd seen in North Carolina. But he just assumed, well, you know, it's a different part of the world, they have different animals out there. And soon those scratches, those small sounds started getting louder and louder and louder. And they started hearing, especially when they're trying to go to sleep. And finally, John Bell says, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing this to us? In the beginning, did not hear words, just hear those kind of things. But over time, those sounds became words. And John Bell was a Baptist and very strongly did not want people to know, because they might think, well, what did John Bell do to cause a spirit or whatever it is to come do these kind of things? So he told the family members, you cannot tell anybody about this. But after a while, it's getting so bad, because not only was it making sounds and waking them up every night, it would do this. pinch, slap when they're sleeping. Males, females, both. And after a while, John tells the family, I'm going to get the preacher to come, and the preacher can help us. And the preacher came, they prayed, and nothing changed. And the preacher said, John, you have got to let folks know about this. You've got to let your neighbors know about this. And finally they did. And what would you guess? When neighbors started finding out something like that's going on at the Bell House, what do you think some of those neighbors wanted to do? Well, I'm going to stay away. I want to come and see what's going on. They wanted to come and see what's going on. And so little at a time, a person or two or small group and pretty soon everybody in Red River mostly had been there at least one time. And the haint, the witch, whatever, because people called her different things, started talking to people and would tell them jokes and would tell them things that would be embarrassing. Hey, I know what you did a year ago in February. I think I'll tell everyone. Y'all want me to tell what he did a week ago, a year ago in February? Yeah. And what are you smiling at? I remember what you did. You want me to? You're smiling over here too. And so pretty soon, before we had movies and all those things, people wanted to come to the Bell House to be entertained. But she also said, people would say, what are you doing here? What'd you come here for? And she would joke and she would tell lies and why she came, except she said, I'm going to tell you the truth this time. I came to kill John Bell. Well, when are you going to kill him? When I'm ready. Why? Why are you going to kill him? Because he deserves killing. And this went on until, late 1819, going into 1820. And John starts getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And then he dies in December of 1820. And the Bell Witch legend then became the story of the only time a haint, a ghost, a witch, whatever you want to call it, killed a human being. And that became part of the story. Now that is a very quick and small concept of the story as a whole. For me, what's incredible is how this story got started and why people believe these things. And on this end, how did it get to be worldwide? So, anybody here ever gossiped? Come on, tell the truth. Is there anybody in this room has not gossiped? Well, you probably just didn't tell the truth. We humans gossip. If we look at the whole host of human beings since we learned to talk, the number one way people communicated with each other was through gossip. Did you hear what was going on at his house? Do you hear what's going on? Let me tell you what's going on back there, right back here. Let me tell you what. People gossip. They did then, we do now. And so the story started spreading by gossip. Now, something was going on at the Bell House. And to this day, we really don't know what it is. Some people believe and do, and some people don't. But when people start gossiping with each other, they start making up stories. Anybody in this room ever made up stories? Or anybody in this room know people where you, especially somebody older than you, and you say, oh, come on, tell me a story. Tell me a story when you were young. Yeah. And this story that started as gossip becomes stories. Not a story, stories. Give you an idea of why I say a stories, not a story. Anybody in here ever watched Andy Griffith's show? All right, I said Andy Griffith, one of my favorite. I still watch Andy Griffith. And so, one of my favorite Andy Griffith story, what was his son's name? Opie. Opie's teacher, who was Andy's girlfriend in the show, is a school teacher, history teacher. And so she says, I want everybody to write a piece on the history of Mayberry, and whoever wins, it's going to be on the front page of the newspaper. So, Opie decides he is going to write about the Great Battle of Mayberry. Great Battle of Mayberry, where the whites defeated the Indians and took over the territory. Now, as Opie went around and talked with all the older people in Mayberry, no matter what the family was, they all told a different story. And the story they told had their relative being the one who led the fight against the Indians. And so he's got a dozen people and a dozen different stories. So Andy takes him to Raleigh, which they've got, in Raleigh they've got a place where they got newspapers going all the way back to the beginning of North Carolina. And he reads in there that a group of leaders for the Indians and a group of the leaders for the whites got together, got drunk, and decided they weren't going to fight each other. But all those people in Mayberry, according to their family, they knew what that story was. And that's the same thing that happened with the Bell Witch story. If this family told it this way, this family told it this way, and as I said earlier, there's not hundreds, there's thousands of different versions of the Bell Witch legend. So, why do people believe what they can't prove? And that is a vital piece to helping understand the Bell Witch legend. Now, before I go and give you some, you that are born and raised around here, do you have the stories that not just you, but in general, people in this area knows and tell about each other? About each other. All right. How far are we from Hopkinsville?
Not far.
Not far. Anybody in the room ever heard the Little Green Men of Kelly, Kentucky? Yep, I see some hands back there.
They were drunk.
Pardon? The Little Green Men of Kelly, Kentucky. It went like this. We was drinking, and this spaceship landed, and this little green men came out. They had their space guns, and they started shooting us. We went in, and we got our shotguns, and we got our rifles, and we came back, and we'd run them off. They got in, and they left, but they said they're coming back. I don't know how they understood what a space person would say, but they're coming back. Now, this is true. Some of them from Kelly, Kentucky, go to Hopkinsville. They get the Hopkinsville police and the Christian County police involved, and then the county gets Fort Campbell involved about something that never happened. That never happened. But I can guarantee you, go to Hopkinsville and find people who've been there for generations. They're going to tell you that this story is true. I know that. How many folks know William Turner? Some of us talked about. One of the best storytellers of all, the best Bell Witch storyteller of all time is William Turner. He just was with us at Adams when we did Red River Tales. Come see us sometime. It's free. Red River Tales, I run my mouth, introduce people, and they tell stories. And I told some stories out there. So, William Turner called me, and he said, Rick, we're going to open a new history museum. Would you come and be a docent for the Bell Witch legend and the Tobacco Night Riders? I said, I'd be happy to. And so I did. Now the fellow next to me, he was the docent for the Little Green Men in Kelly, Kentucky. And so he's saying, Rick, this story is true. Rick, this story is true. I wasn't about to tell him it wasn't. He's big. So I wasn't going to tell him it wasn't true. So that's just one example. Bigfoot. What other kind of things did you hear growing up about things like that?
Loch Ness Monster.
Pardon? What did you say, somebody back here?
Nessie.
Pardon?
Loch Ness. Nessie.
Loch Ness Monster. Yes, Loch Ness Monster, which nobody's seen. But there's people in that part of the world will tell you, yes. See, anybody else? What other?
Mothman in West Virginia.
West Virginia, the Mothman. I worked with I did a conference someplace, and this fellow was from West Virginia. He said, if you got some extra time, I'll take you down where it really happened. And so I had to go, and we went down. The Mothman. Never happened. But folks around there will tell you that it happened. One from Robertson County. Carrs Creek Critter. Carrs Creek Critter. It's Robertson County's version of Bigfoot, except it was a great big huge wolf with great big feet, and he's going around, he's killing all of these animals all over the place. Oh, he's horrible. Robertson County Sheriff's Department gets involved. They put a helicopter in the sky, and they looked all over, and guess what they never found? Because it wasn't real. It was a group of boys and a couple of men who were drinking, who thought up and make prints and stuff, and called the police. And the whole county's all upset over something that didn't happen. So on this end, we believe things that we can't prove. Now, what about the other end? How did this story become worldwide? Now, I started off with the first things, because we gossip and because we love to tell stories. And I do. I love to tell stories. I love to hear stories. But some of those stories people believe. I've said this to you earlier, that there's hundreds, maybe thousands of different books, articles on the Bell Witch. What is it where you can look up things about from newspapers.com? Newspapers.com, look up, and you're going to find more than you got time to read of newspaper articles, especially this time of the year, about the Bell Witch. People believe what they decide they want to be true. Now, some people have experienced things, and some folks in here have talked to me about supernatural things that they experience, and I'm not one to say it ain't true, because I haven't experienced it. Doesn't mean that other people haven't experienced it. So some folks in here have shared with me. I haven't experienced anything. So, and by the way, I'm probably the only person in the room that spent the night in the Bell Witch Cave. A sense of manhood in Robertson County, Tennessee, when I was young. You ain't a man if you can't get in the barn and house tobacco, and you ain't a man if you ain't slept in the Bell Witch Cave. So, I wanted to be a man. I slept in the Bell Witch Cave. And by the way, I got in the barn and housed tobacco. The Bell Witch legend, to me, it's not important whether it's true or not. What's important is that some people believe it, and even people that don't believe it can get pleasure out of it. And it's the most known legend, myth going. Now, just one last idea for you about denying the Bell Witch. Denying the Bell Witch. There's a part of the Bell Witch legend, if you deny her and say she's not real, she will get you. And by the way, that came from Bloody Mary hundreds of years ago. But it was incorporated into the Bell Witch legend. And so, now, I have never experienced the witch, so I don't think the witch is true. And I said that from the stage in Adams, Tennessee, on land that belonged to the Bell family. After speaking after John Bell's fifth generation person who's talking about the story being true, and I get on stage and I say, I don't think his story's true, but I think it's an incredible story of its kind. Now, remember, you deny it, the witch will get you. In the next week, how many tick bites did you get?
100 sea tick bites.
I had to sleep in my truck. 100 tick bites. We had tickets to go see Old Crow Medicine Show at the Ryman. $100 and some per ticket. We had tickets to go, and our daughter's a nurse. She got MRSA at the hospital in Clarksville. And so we had to stay home and take care of our grandchild, and so give 2 tickets away. They had a good time. But we didn't get to go. Our refrigerator quit working. And we live on a river with a kayak, and, where I go kayaking. And I'm going down to the river that same week. Going down to the river to put my kayak in and go catch some crappie. And there's a big tree limb over the path going down to the gravel bar. And I'm in a hurry, so I don't put on my steel-toed boots. I just got my shoes I wear since I'm gonna wade in the creek. And I start cutting that, and part of it fell on this foot right here, broke my big toe and the toe next to it. All that after I denied the Bell Witch being true. And so I will not deny that it's true. I will just say I have no proof that it's true. So it has been wonderful being with you. And anybody else that came in later, if you'd like to buy a book, come on up and we'll take care of that for you. But also remember anything tonight. Don't deny the Bell Witch is true. And lock your doors when you go home. Good being with everybody. Thank you.